So, we're starting this week off with some never before seen insights around the XLM network. I have been studying their anchor directory and I found something very profound. When you put all the numbers together, you're really going to get a clear picture of just how broad this XLM network really is. And also, over the weekend, I stumbled upon a pretty interesting podcast. Shout out to the members of the committee for this one. You guys sent this to me. Danielle Dixon appeared on the Psychology Is podcast with who I would come to discover is her cousin. And she talked about XLM in a way that I have never heard before. Like I said in my community post, Danielle may very well be the most open, down to earth figure in this space. All the more reason why I'm willing to put the boat behind Stellar Lumens. So, guys, I got 2 birthdays to celebrate this week, so I will be busy. I may not be posting much this week. Daughter's turning 5, nephew is turning 18, so I got some things to take care of, right? But I've been just researching this information I'm going to share with you over the weekend, and I got to get it off my chest because I want you to carry the understanding that I have. So, welcome. My name is Wade. If you're new, you're listening to the DHN Crypto Podcast. Me, I've been in the space since 2019. I've researched a boatload of assets, but the main reason I sit here is to share all that knowledge with you. All I'm asking in return, you hit that subscribe button if you find value. And in exchange, I got a couple tokens of appreciation for you. Let's hop over to the terminal so we can check these out. Number one being the DHN Blockchain Starter Kit for 2025. If you're new to the space, this is your dossier to the world of blockchain. It's filled with links to various news outlets, crypto networks, analytics sources, everything you need to keep your finger on the pulse of the crypto space. Now, specifically for this channel, it pairs well with the new financial system master sheet. The assets you see listed here are the assets we have covered extensively for years. This has given us an opportunity to categorize the organizations that they share. If you want to get deep into crypto research, this is the number one tool that you need, and it doesn't come alone. You also will need fundamental knowledge of the technology that you are investing in, and that's why I put together Blockmaster. This thing covers the entire board. Everything that I've been exposed to in my 5.5 years in this space, I shoved it into 28 pages and I'm giving it to the world. So, links to Blockmaster, the new financial system master sheet, as well as the starter kit will be in the link under this video, or in the description under this video, as well as the pinned comment. Now, lastly, our affiliate is Uphold. So if you're looking to get into crypto, you need an exchange to begin your journey, I would recommend Uphold. Not only am I an affiliate, but I've been a customer since 2020. So, and I wouldn't recommend nothing to y'all if I haven't used it myself, most likely, or at least a year. I even research assets for at least a year before I even make one episode about them. All right, y'all, you guys will come to know that about me. But let's get into this story, guys. Let me share with you the profound information that I discovered after running the numbers for Stellar's anchor directory. So if you want to find this out, you go to anchor.stellar.org. And what this is, these anchors, you can consider them entry and exit points for the Stellar network. It's how customers and builders can essentially interact and where they can interact. Another way to look at this is this information here. So these anchors are spread all across the world, right? Over 150 countries, if I'm not mistaken. But another way to look at this, if you break it down by economic block, which are essentially regions of the world where wealth, money is concentrated, you will see some very interesting statistics. Now, I'll tell you like this, the RCEP, just consider that the East, right? Then you have USMCA, United States, Mexico, and Canada, all 27 EU member states. Yep, Stellar has anchors scattered across the entire union, as well as the CPTTP. That's more so your specific coast nations. AFCTA, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and then Mercosur. A much smaller economic bloc, but it compromises your Brazils and tropical nations. That's the easiest way that I can describe it to you. But the most important piece is the concentration here. You'll notice the majority of the anchors on the Stellar network are in the European Union. which is very fitting because they have the micro rules out there. Last year, thanks to Circle, the Euro C launched on Stellar. So as the EU moves forward, Stellar is going to move forward with the EU. You see, the second largest concentration is in that RCEP, or the nations of the East, at 27.1%. Japan, China, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. All places and names that we know of being very forward thinking when it comes to blockchain development. Now, it's quite shocking that only 10% of the anchors on the Stellar network are in US, Mexico, and Canada, but regulations have been a lot more strict here in recent years, despite the consistent presence that Daniil and the rest of the Stellar Development Foundation have had in the US Congress. Now, another number that sticks out to me is the 17.9% across those AFCTA areas. This would encompass parts of Africa. And the number of anchors that Stellar has in Africa is 102. Okay? Now, even though the adoption rate isn't as high, once things get going in Africa, Stellar is already there. Right? But I got another way for us to look at these numbers. This is global distribution of cryptocurrency ownership coming from last year. And you'll notice something very interesting. And I wrote it down for you because I want to share these facts with you. So, global cryptocurrency ownership 2024. Take a look at the countries along the eastern side of the world here. You can see that Thailand, South Korea, Vietnam, Philippines, places with high concentration, Singapore. Stellar has anchors in these areas. As a matter of fact, I want to pull up another chart here. We'll get back to those. This is that same information, just spread out a little bit more visually appealing. You can call it that. But take a look at the top 6 nations on this sheet here. So going from left to right, the UAE sitting at the top, 25.3%, but Singapore at 24.4%. Check this out. There are 13 on and off ramps in Singapore. When you get down to Argentina at 18.9%, Stellar has 20 in Argentina. Where's Brazil at? Comes in 6th place, 17.5%. There are 28 anchors in Brazil. The point I'm making here, guys, and we can pull this deck back up here now, is Stellar not only has anchors in the highest value areas in the world, but they also have anchors in areas where the concentration of cryptocurrency ownership is the strongest. These are another way to define these economic blocks are free trade areas. And I pulled this graphic here to give us a deeper understanding, not to get too deep into it, but just to have the context for the thinking behind my research. There it is, right? But you see the numbers here. Without these free trade agreements, without these areas, guys, the global economy does not move. So it was knowing this information that started my thinking, because I'm looking at global maps here, and we're always looking at a global map when we talk Stellar's anchors. So I'm like, if Stellar has this much reach, well, how does that overlap with other, let's say, global arrangements, such as these free trade areas? So that's my logic behind why I put it together. And what it showed me is, again, Stellar has anchors in the highest value of areas, both by economic output and cryptocurrency ownership. I don't see it getting any better for XLM, but another question we got to ask ourselves is, how does this help builders on XLM? Well, I see it as giving them the same amount of access that customers have for Stellar. When you take a look at the anchor directory and you sort by country, you'll get a list of on and off ramps. I took a screenshot of a few on and off ramps just to give us an idea of the diversity of on and off ramp capabilities on Stellar. You take a look at this list. You got some names that we are very familiar with: Alchemy Pay, MoneyGram, Mercado Bitcoin, MoonPay, Binance, OKX, Crypto.com, Bybit. What you will also notice is that Alchemy Pay, that's fiat conversion. Binance, you can look at them as a payment rail. Crypto.com has the exchange connection, along with Bybit, Sex.io. Digitra is one of the wallet providers. Bitfinex is another exchange. OK Coin, another one. Then you have setups like MoneyGram and MoonPay, which can also be considered additional payment rails. Mercado Bitcoin, that's the one in Brazil. Another thing you'll notice, another pattern here, is that little blue circle next to an XLM logo or the logo for a national currency in that area. So what I'm trying to show you is, for the builders on the Stellar network, having all of these on and off ramps already in place. Because here's the situation, and we're going to look at some clips in just a moment where Daniil is going to reinforce this. But if you're building on XLM, and let's just say you're in Algeria, right? You're building on XLM, you create a wallet. You want to add a certain service to the wallet, but the service, in order for you to get it going, you got to connect to one of these other players, one of these third parties. Well, if you're building on Stellar and you want to have that type of business model, that sort of mechanism, well, Stellar's going to need to have as many on and off ramps as it needs to in order for your product, your service, and your wallet to reach mass capacity. That is the advantage that the diversity of these networks give to the Stellar builders. Same amount of access that customers on Stellar get, right? But that's just one level. We can obviously talk about individual use cases. The most popular recently has been Zebek Network. And don't get me wrong, I know I haven't covered it in a couple weeks. That goes back to that point I made earlier. I like to do my research. But the payroll aspect is very huge, especially in the context of our conversation. This payroll, the story of Zebek, let me just drop this in here real quick. I was fishing around, saw an interview from Zebek's founder from about 3 years ago. He was talking about why he started Zebek in the first place. He was working a specific job and he was having a lot of issues with payroll. It was the problem of having to wait so long for the payment to clear. It was that motivation that created the Zebek network at the end of the day. Now, if you've ever been in a situation where a bill needs to be paid today, but you don't get paid until tomorrow, right? You ain't got no extra line of credit. You don't have no Dave app. You ain't got no Cash App or anything like that, but that bill need to be paid. Zebek and other networks focused on payroll, they're looking to address that issue by allowing you to access those funds instantly. And again, in this sort of situation, as we have learned with Zebek, they needed to go to Circle as that third party connector. Zebek has the payroll service that is strengthened by the Stellar network, but the transacting currency, the fuel to this entire engine, is the USDC Circle stablecoin, which is all throughout Stellar's network, right? And then additionally, we touched on stablecoins earlier and their presence in the EU. You can see here, Stellar blockchain chosen for new EURT EuroPeg stablecoin initiative. So as stablecoins come out under this new MiCA rule, which encompassed all stablecoins, it put them on the right rubric. And to that point, here in the United States, we did move one step closer with the Genius Stablecoin Act as of last night. Now there's a second vote that needs to be had, but because the first session went so well, everyone is anticipating it will pass at the next session. So Stellar is in a position to capitalize off of that, again, because of the anchors and the connections. And if we go back to those, crypto.com is all over the United States. They just added USDC capabilities for Algorand. I'm not quite sure if they've done it for Stellar yet, but it won't be that hard now. So we got different use cases: payroll, stable coins, and then, of course, the big one, tokenization, right? So, oh, yes. And then this right here is the ad. This is an ad, ladies and gentlemen, that is in the middle of a city in Ukraine for the Transparent Payment Network that was built by the Ministry of Technology out there, and it runs on the Stellar network. This is tied in to the work that Stellar started with the UNHCR in Ukraine going back as far back as 2021. Now, in that podcast that I saw with Danielle and her cousin, they go deeper into that discussion. I didn't want to share too many clips from the podcast because it was great. I'm gonna leave a link to it under this video as well because I want you guys to watch it. Danielle really put Stellar in a perspective, from a human perspective, that made me really, it made me more comfortable in what I was holding. As a matter of fact, I think I have this up next.
Stellar Development
Yes.
Foundation.
Yes, I do. Precisely. She's going to
Stellar
get
Development
into
Foundation produced a document.
a story that was told here. Let's go back. I'm using a new system, guys. Bear with me. But this next clip here is going to encompass all of what we're saying. What we have discovered is Stellar has its anchors in areas of high economic value. These anchors are also located in places where cryptocurrency is being adopted the fastest. Last year, they published a documentary that told the story of a gentleman, a business owner in Cambodia. His life was at risk, ladies and gentlemen. And had it not been for the decaf wallet, as well as Stellar technology, this man might not be alive to tell the story.
This gentleman who was starting a business in San Francisco, Colombia, and he was trying to hire local talent. So there were many folks who wanted to be like virtual assistants, or not virtual, outsourced assistants. And so they were doing that from San Francisco, Colombia. Originally, the way he funded it is that he would literally drive like 3 hours to the bank and get cash and then drive back and deliver the cash to pay his workers. He was nearly killed because someone was trying to steal the money from him, and I think they effectively did. And he was like, I can't do this anymore because like this is a very dangerous operation for me to do. And he happened to know the founder of Decaf, and Decaf then was like, try the wallet. Try this and use this stablecoin and to get it. So what happened is we have a relationship with MoneyGram, which is an entity that's like got 480,000 locations globally. And so then you can take the crypto asset and cash out into your local currency wherever you are in the world. And so Decaf is integrated with that too. And so he started using the Decaf wallet. He didn't have to go to the bank anymore and didn't have to drive with, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash to pay his employees. They could just get paid right into the wallet. But more importantly, they then had money because they didn't have to like go to their banks, which was 2 or 3 hours away. They had extra money to spend because they were now employed in the region receiving this and could cash out at MoneyGram. So then they started putting money into like buying things at their local markets or their local, any of the stores that were available, the storefronts. And then it brought like so much more vitality to this really small community in San Francisco, Colombia. So it's a story, and we call it the on-chain effect because we looked at it from the standpoint of, yes, it's amazing that they're using this technology, and we love that, of course. But like the impact on the human side and the impact on the businesses in that rural community was really significant.
So this is the wallet, the Decaf wallet that she was talking about. It is linked in with MoneyGram. USDC is the primary stablecoin that flows through it. But what I found to be the most profound is, again, had it not been for Stellar, this man wouldn't have his life. I don't know how else to, amplify that. I don't know what else you want me to say. It's the real world impact, situations like that when I first started to look into Stellar, I just got it. It makes sense. And year after year, the deeper I look into it, the more it makes sense. She used another analogy in the podcast, earlier in the podcast, when talking about tokenization and meme tokens, right? She compared these meme tokens to trading cards, baseball, basketball cards, things like that back in the day, right? the communities are similar when you really think about it. And part of the reason why people would go and buy a particular baseball card was because of the attributes of the player. It wasn't necessarily the financial incentive. That's the added layer that we have in crypto that, can be a double-edged sword sometime. But at its core, we're trading digital cards, guys. In my opinion, we're trading digital collectibles. That's what they call them, digital assets. So when you look into the crypto space, I'll wrap with this. Well, I actually have one last piece. Daniil's going to wrap this episode, but I want to leave you with this. When you come into the space and you look at all the chaos around it, just think of it like that. These are baseball cards. These are basketball cards. Certain players are playing better than others right now, and that's why everybody wants their card. But that always changes, doesn't it? Perfect piece to end with. Daniil Dixon's going to take it away. She was asked, what would you say to a Bitcoin maxi that would tell you that assets like Stellar are worthless? I love this.
Leading into a question that I admit I didn't warn you I was going to ask you, but I'm curious, what would you say to like Bitcoin maximalists? The people who say it's Bitcoin or nothing, everything else is garbage. What would you say to that crowd?
I think that the Bitcoin is something that is incredibly useful for a store of value. I think the current way, there's a layer, the Lightning Network built on top of Bitcoin that actually moves value and settles at different times. But it's not like always used for payments. And it's really like the store of value piece that is really interesting. I hold Bitcoin. I know lots of people hold Bitcoin for that reason. Like you just say, like, this is one of those things that if I hold on to it, it's going to be worth more in 5 years from now than it is today. I think it's super valuable for that standpoint. It's also like really important because it started this. Like if you think about like the Bitcoin white paper and like how this all came together, like this is remarkable. It was like set up to be that movement of value. And the thing that I look at is, what does innovation breed? But more innovation. So the ideas that Bitcoin was built on has created this amazing infrastructure that's out there today. There are lots of chains that are doing really interesting things, not just Stellar. And I think that kind of competition creates better and better and better processes and outcomes for the humans and the businesses that rely on it. So I would say that I think Bitcoin is hugely important part of our history. And I think that for the most part, movement of value and tokenization, which is very different, that's not something that you can't do that on Bitcoin at this point, at least not on the base layer. And I think that is actually changing the world, but it's based on like the initial impetus of what Bitcoin was.
Makes sense. Okay.
Bitcoin is the quarterback for this industry. Take it away. And I know we see a lot of people, especially on Twitter, who have this tribalistic, toxic approach towards the communities. I dig that. But a mature way to look at it, you have to understand that without Bitcoin, there'd be no XRP. There'd be no Stellar. There'd be no Litecoin. Specifically, in Litecoin's case, Charlie Lee said, I only created Litecoin because I didn't like what Bitcoin was. I felt it could be better, so I created Litecoin. Okay? And not to be brash, but I wanted to share that perspective with you guys because holding it now makes me feel a lot more comfortable about the space going forward. So with that, guys, don't forget to check out the products in the description as well as the pinned comment under this video. Links to the DHN starter kit, Blockmaster, new financial system master sheet. Also, don't forget to check out Uphold as well if you're wanting to get involved with crypto for the very first time. With that, y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.